Hey, how's it going, everybody? It is Jack and Pho here, and we're back with a very interesting topic. It's about Dave Smith and the lie that broke the libertarian internet. And we've been waiting to do this for a long time. It's been something that's been sitting with us and making us really kind of upset and uncomfortable for a long time because so many people were deceived by it and so many people were led to believe things that were not true about Pho. But there's been some changes in the winds and some things that have come together that have enabled us the time and bandwidth and opportunity to really address this head on. So if you're not familiar with this, no worries. We're just going to talk straight from, the original source of where this all came from and get into what it is that he said that was not only a mischaracterization, but something that was meant to instill an animosity, hatred, and basically a murderous intent toward Pho. Yeah. So first and foremost, we have to look at what happened here. And this is all the way back February 19, 2024. So this is something that was taking back then when there's lots of debates going on about different ideas and libertarian policies and things like that. Because, of course, it was a hot button political year and everybody was getting into it, thinking about, what's going to happen with the end of year elections and things like that. So I'm cutting in at this point because there's lots of backs and forth, but this is really where it gets to the core of it. So if you want to see what's happening here, I'm just going to read what Dave says for context. I want to keep everything in context. He says, so if Tom says it's interesting, then I must also agree. He was just saying that to me, talking about my book and saying, oh, we can talk about a topic from this in a debate. He says, Tom says I'm the best messenger of the liberty movement, so I guess we must agree too. Again, he just puts this out there, even though his point was just about, oh, is there something interesting for you to say? So again, just moving past that point and getting to the core of, where things kind of come together. Mm-hmm. He says, I think you're misunderstanding me. I'm not saying give me an assignment to read your book or listen to a podcast. I'm saying tell me what you want to debate and make a compelling point. If you want to debate borders, do you understand my position? What am I getting wrong? If you make a compelling point, maybe I'll do it. Just happened yesterday with Chris. So as you can see, Dave here is claiming that if I give him a point, if I tell him, okay, here's a point to the debate, that maybe he'll do it. So I'm like, okay, here's this very specific narrow point. I say, collectivist rhetoric using will of the people causes major confusion among your followers and leads them to rationalize more state control out of a fear-based mindset. There are better ways to talk about common problems due to state incentive distortions, and those ways involve privatization as the focus. No need for halfwayisms or rationalizations for state force, such as a call for putting all U.S. troops on the border. Straightforward. So as you can see here,
very straightforward.
I had a narrow topic. Okay, really, you want a narrow topic. Here's the narrow topic.
Specific claim as well.
No, very specific, falsifiable, yes or no kind of situation here. This will of the people, using that as your argument, your basis to say whether something should be done is will of the people, mob rule. Okay. Whether that's actually helping people become more principled and consistent in their action. Okay. So what does he say? Does Dave say, oh, okay, that's a great topic. Jack, let's go ahead and debate that. Let's have a debate. He goes, yeah, it's straightforward, simple even, right? Simple even, almost like a little underhanded commentary to try to, say, oh, you're simple. He says the issue comes to the fact that government property exists. Yeah, no crap. Is it still your position that there should be zero restrictions on public property? The drug addict should be allowed in public schools. Now, again, saying, is this still your position is an assumption that was my position, that, oh, yes, that's what I advocate for, is that's the next step for libertarian advocacy is, we're going to just say, yeah, let's just have a bunch of, crackheads go in and start, touching kids and, hurting kids. Like, this has never been
it's
a part
unrelated
of our
what
anything.
He's literally replying to the point you made is about using the term will of the people. Mm-hmm. And so he comes in and brings up something else, drug addicts.
Right.
He was always talking about drug addicts. I don't know why. Like, you try to debate him, like, will of the people, like, whatever conversation, he's like, hey, do you think drug addicts should be allowed to, like, he always wants to focus on that and misdirect and not actually stay focused on the actual back and forth arguments that you're trying to have with him and debate.
And that perfectly encapsulated it. And of course, what's the reason why? Why would Dave want to frame it as, oh, you think a bunch of, crackheads should go, touch up some kids and this or that, like the drug addict should be allowed in public schools, right? Because he's loading that intentionally because his goal, as what he does on Twitter, or now X, is to look for something to demonize you with. He wants to bait you into saying something so that he can go repost that to his followers and say, oh, look at these monsters, right? Yep. So do I say, oh, yeah, let's advocate for, a bunch of drug addicts and this or that just to go in and start going into kindergarten or something, right? No, of course not. That has nothing to do with my position whatsoever. I say, is it still your position that there should be zero restriction of public property? That's not my position's focus. Never has been. You want to learn what it is? Debate me live. So again, and I say that because I'm just frustrated at this point. He says, oh, answer this question, and then, we'll set up a debate, if I find it interesting. And instead of him doing that, he then goes and asks a new question that's loaded because he wants me to go and say something like that. So it can be like, oh, see, Jack just wants kids to be, molested by, a bunch of crackheads or something. So it's really something else, to see his sophistry just outlaid like this. Our positions have always been about getting kids out of state schools and about getting rid of the compulsory schooling laws, getting rid of the forcible funding. That's our focus. And we're not superintendents of schools here. It's not like we're going to the PTA meeting next week and we're setting up the next, set of rules in the charter. We are here communicating
interest in doing
right, exactly. We're not running for superintendent next year. We're not running for. We are here communicating with parents and telling them, hey, this is a terrible place to send your kids. It's a state brainwashing center. They're going to be abused. They're going to be bullied. The best thing you can give your kids is to get them out of there. And even if some people might be on the edge, maybe they're, impoverished in some way, and they're like, oh, it's a struggle. We look for ways to help people and help them understand how they can do it. Because lots of people have figured it out. Even under very shoestring budgets, there's lots of people who figured out homeschooling, unschooling, world schooling, private schooling, you name it. Microschooling, Carrie McDonald of Fee has a great podcast and many books on these topics, helping families figure out how to get out of schooling. So our focus has never been about, oh, this is what should be done. And I lay that out even clearly in my book, A Vision for a Libertarian Future, which was, of course, mentioned above, just before this. So for us, this is just really frustrating at this point. Here, we've answered your question. It's a very narrow focus. It's a great topic for debate. And now you're moving the goalposts because you want to debate.
Answered his question.
Exactly. I already answered that question. Now here's a new question. You got to answer it. So let's see what happens next, right? Does he...
let me just pause here and preface what we're going to mention next. So basically what you're doing is you made a very clear point about, hey, what you want to debate him on if you were to go on a show is about using the collectivist term will of the people to justify government actions. That was your whole focus. Instead, his direct reply to you was, okay, well, let's talk about drug addicts in schools. Like, totally skipping over what you said you would like to debate him on. And so from there, I think you saw that he was laying a trap. That's why you wouldn't answer his other questions that he added about drug addicts that were totally unrelated to your original point about using the collectivist term will of the people. So you saw that. Me, on the other hand, I'm just like, philosophically, let's, think about that question. Quote unquote, should drug addicts be allowed to enter public schools? First of all, very broad. What is a drug addict? Coffee? Smoking on Juuls all the time when you have your Part of the Problem podcast? Is that a drug addict? Right? I mean, that was my, mindset at the time, like really trying to be nuanced here, as you should be, especially because you're dealing with coercion and government initiation of violence. So I walked right into the trap, not realizing that that's all he was doing. He wasn't actually interested in having a discussion about principles. He was actually just interested in seeing, okay, what kind of trap can I lay so that they can say something and then I can just repost to my followers and ridicule this person and basically denigrate them, totally mischaracterize their argument. So as you will see next, that is actually what happens.
Exactly.
I walk right into the trap, his sadistic trap. With thinking that, hey, maybe he has good intentions here and he actually just wants to have a debate. Boy, was I wrong, and I won't make that mistake again. And now I see the wolf in sheep's clothing.
Yep. And just to show you here, again, Dave, after me answering his question and saying that position's not my focus, right? I say, debate me live. You want to hear what it is. He says, no, you got to answer the question. Like as if I owe him something. Like, what are you, my parent? Like, I don't owe you anything. You can debate me or not. You asked me to answer a question. I did out of respect, and it was a very narrow, specific, good philosophical question. And instead, you say, you've told me in the past that the drug addict shouldn't be restricted from entering public schools. Now, first and foremost, I don't even know where he got that from. We've had a debate about like homeless taking a poop in a library at like Mises U, and that was me saying the absurdity of public property is evidenced when you see the tragedy of the commons, right? Why do we understand that public property is a farce, right? Because if the public actually could use it however they want, there'd be all these conflicts. The homeless person could poop in the library. And if people saw a homeless person poop in the library, it'd be like, oh my gosh, why are they pooping in the library? So what does the government do? They create pseudo property rights by trying to meter it in a way that makes it favorable for people because they want people to believe the state can centrally plan well. And by having this artifice of, oh, see, we keep the libraries nice. You want us to centrally plan the libraries. Yeah. You want us to centrally plan the parks, just like they do in North Korea. They have the ski resort and like, see, look, the government's great. We have a ski resort. And oh, we have karaoke if you come as a tourist. They do these things to obfuscate the reality that it's not public. You're not a co-owner. If you try to act as an owner, the government is going to arrest you, of course. If you're like, oh, I'm going to stay at a library after close, they're like, you're going to jail.
You're funded by force to fund it.
Right.
Taxation.
You're forced to fund
you're
it.
Extorted to fund it.
So our point is pointing to the absurdity of these things, and we note, and we emphatically note, that when it's allowed to be shown how tragic it is, when you show the tragedy of the commons and you show the failures of the state, that is your evidence, right? If you cover it up and say, no, we're just going to make everything private property oriented, we're going to try to make it beautiful. Well, guess what? People are not exactly going to think, oh, well, the state's really bad. They're going to sit there and say, oh, no, the libraries are kind of nice. The parks are kind of nice.
Property taxes, so they can keep things clean.
Exactly.
There's no other way to have a clean park or a nice school.
So does that mean that we sit there and go, oh, well, we want crack addicts to just throw needles around in parks and go poop and this or that? No, that's not our focus. Our focus is privatization. We say these things happen naturally because that is the result of governments who take these areas and say, oh yeah, we're not going to do anything. The homeless will sleep in the parks and create these encampments. That is the result of your socialism, your state central planning. That is what we point to as the evidence of why privatization is necessary. And instead of saying, oh, you know what? Yeah, you're right. This is our chance as libertarians that when we see things bad in public schools, in public parks, with the government, that's our chance to say, yes, this is why this is happening. Exactly. This is what needs to change. Privatization. This is the tragedy, right? That's the tragedy. That's why, if you want good incentives, ethical incentives, privatization's the way. And yes, is that going to happen, overnight? No. Are people going to just all jump on board overnight? No. You have to argue and convince people and change minds and point out the poverty and the destruction of state central planning. But if you're a libertarian, you're like, no, I'm going to make the public schools nicer. I'm going to focus on the public parks being nice. You can do that, right? It's like... Every other statist does that. Every regular run-of-the-mill Republican and Democrat wants nice parks and nice schools, and they'll campaign that all day because it's easy to say, and it makes you a winner. Oh, yeah, look, see, I care about the children. Look at me. I'm so great. Yeah, anybody can do that. It takes a libertarian to say, hey, these problems are inherent to state central planning, and the ethical solution that actually broadens choices and enables people to actually associate or not associate based on their preferences is privatization. That's always been our MO.
Taxation. Yeah. So that you're not forced to fund these institutions. It's just like you being like, hey, we should not have government mandated charity. You shouldn't be forced to fund charity programs. You shouldn't be extorted. There shouldn't be taxation where your wealth is just taken from you and it goes to wherever and you have zero say. It's like if we made that position and a communist or socialist comes back and they're like, what? You want to get rid of Medicare, Medicaid? That means you just want homeless people to die in the streets, or my grandma or grandpa to just die in the streets and not get any medical care. And that's literally what Dave is doing here when he focuses on random nuances. Oh, what ifs, instead of actually having a conversation and debate about, hey, what are private property rights? What is taxation? Is it extortion? Is it theft? Are your rights actually being violated? And we actually want to have those conversations, but he said he misdirects just like any other statist.
Yeah. I mean, it's like no different than any, public school Karen who's like, we got to ban drugs and guns, for the children. It's like, you think of the children, they're, moms demand action sign. It's like, wow, okay, yeah, that's every single person dangles kids as their shield when they want to hide what it is that they are advocating for and not remind you that they're asking for more state force as a solution, as opposed to saying, wait, we have a chance, we have opportunity costs, we can do one thing, we can do another, we can send our money one place, we can send our money to another. let's focus on privatization. Let's focus on alternatives. Let's teach people that, yes, you can get your kids out of state schools. There is a way. Yes, there are private parks out there. Let's showcase them to you, just like John Stossel did. This is not some pie in the sky thing. Oh, we can't have private parks at all. You know what I mean? It's silly. And that's the chance to educate people on.
Right. Yeah, I'm glad you brought up the gun control debate, because that is another example. When you say to a FUD or a gun control mom, and you're like, hey, we don't think that the government should be, this monopoly on violence, should be the one dictating who can or can't have guns. It's about property rights. And if you violate property rights, that's a different story. And violations of property rights, theft, murder, are already illegal. They're already criminal. What we're saying is you shouldn't make the act of gun ownership illegal. That is a victimless crime. But a Dave Smith sophist would respond, a Karen would respond like, oh my God, you just want kids to be shot up in schools. You just want a crack addict to enter public schools and shoot up all the kids. How dare you not want government gun control? How dare you advocate for the Second Amendment and the right to bear arms? I mean, that's literally how he thinks. And I was a fool to just give him, the benefit of the doubt and think, he must be genuinely asking my opinion. But, he was not. And so, you'll see here that I was genuinely responding and giving a philosophical argument in response.
Right. And what we're going to see here when you read in just a moment is it's like the gun control debate there, where we're not, saying here, oh, give a 5-year-old a loaded gun and let's see what happens when he pulls the trigger. When we say, hey, end gun-free school zones, we mean the government should not make a one-size-fits-all blanket policy that criminalizes people who are not initiating violent force against another. Yes, a parent should be able to pick up their kid and have their gun on them, and they can do that without offending anybody with a violent threat in that way. That's totally fine. There are plenty of ways for someone to be peaceful with a gun. So it is that level of thinking that we are bringing to the table, and unfortunately that was lost when Dave decided to obfuscate that reality. Mm-hmm. So I'm going to have you, let me just finish this here. He just said, your wife said something that affected their day. Do you still believe that? Yes or no? If you claim I'm ducking a debate, then don't duck this simple question, right? Right. Yeah. Ducking the debate.
I didn't see the sophistry. I didn't see how he was like,
there's so much sophistry.
Hey, give me a point,
and
then maybe I'll consider debating you. Then you give a point.
I give the point.
He doesn't respond to it at all.
Nope.
And he's like, well, what do you think about drug addicts? Just
moving the goalposts.
And you have to answer that, manipulating you to think that, oh, if you do answer it, he will have you on his show and debate you.
Right.
When he's actually lying.
Yes.
And just trying to bait you to say something like I'm about to do.
Yep.
That he can then take out of context for his followers that are also sophistic.
Right.
Or lack critical thinking.
Or just read what's in front of them, and they won't read beyond what he posts. They're not going to go look into it. They're just going to say, oh, Dave said it. It's true.
Take it at face value that because he asserts that I think this, they're not actually going to fact check Dave because he has a little cult. They'll just be like, oh, yeah, Dave's always right. So if he said Philosopher said this, I don't actually need to look at what she actually wrote. I just need to go off what he said and be like, yeah, you should be murdered for those thoughts because you want crack addicts in the school. That's literally what he did.
Yeah.
And so, do you want me to read?
Yeah, so let's take a look at what you actually said, which is, of course, like with your name, it's a lengthy philosophical
it's really
thought.
Philosophical. So, there you go. Me just having at the time benefit of the doubt for Dave Smith. And so I just answered honestly, gave a philosophical point. I said, since I was mentioned, albeit indirectly, my answer is no. When it comes to public or government property, the principles of individual liberty should still be applied, and limitations on government power should be applied as to maximize individual liberty, which was the anti-federalist founding fathers' intentions, in my opinion, with the Bill of Rights. Just trying to say, hey, we need limits on government, on this monopoly on violence that can coerce and extort. As we strategize and transition to privatization/incapacitated. So for this specific question, my answer is no. Unilaterally, this generalization of drug addicts shouldn't be restricted from entering public schools because the principle of individual liberty should still apply, and the Fourth Amendment should be applied here to prevent people's body, property, and privacy from being violated also known as unreasonable searches and seizures. People should not be criminalized over victimless actions such as being addicted to drugs or not paying taxes.
And again, here it does show that, the timestamp, 3:44, February 19th. This was directly then and there.
Yeah.
So, in terms of what you have just laid down, some people might be like, oh, well, you just really want, the drug addicts to just be walking in. No. And as you can see, when you brought in taxes, it was clear that you were talking about the philosophical blanket rule. Like, oh, is this itself victimizing somebody? Not without more. She didn't say drug addicts who go in and start touching kids in kindergarten. Yeah. She just says the label, just the label, just making this blanket generalization. And it's like, if she's, and I made this point the other day, if she said gun owners should not be criminalized, from because they go into government public spaces, nobody would sit there and say, oh, well, you clearly want gun owners to go murder kids now, don't you?
That is the perfect framing, because I think
it literally
of the people on the quote, right, conservatives to libertarian capitalists would kind of, they're all very pro Second Amendment.
Right.
And so if I had said to Dave, no, gun owners shouldn't be restricted from entering public schools, you'll see in what he does where he doesn't respond to me directly, he quote posts me in order to have it go to his followers, and I don't actually get notified that he's responding to me, because he's not, and then he can misinterpret it. And so I want to read what he is that what you want to do next, that he quote posted?
Yeah, just one little quick step before that, because not only, like, if you want extra proof of this, this guy says, by that logic, no one on January 6th should have been arrested. They had their individual liberties taken away by not allowing them into the Capitol. After all, the government is government/public property. Which she responds, correct.
It is correct.
So does Dave say, oh, I should retweet the Philosopher because she's standing up for the J6ers and saying, yeah, you know what, you didn't victimize somebody, you're just standing on government property alone.
Yeah.
You shouldn't be put into a freaking isolation chamber and tortured. He's not promoting her saying that, is he? No, because if he did, then people might be thinking, oh, right, if you make a blanket statement and you don't think about the nuanced cases, then you're going to just arrest people and say, exactly. Oh, you were there in the Capitol, see, you're on government property.
You're going to justify the government doing that. You're going to justify the government taking people who just entered Congress or all forced to fund through our federal income taxes, all these federal buildings, and they just entered it. They didn't hurt anybody, steal anything, and he would respond and say that is wrong, that they should have been arrested by Dave's own logic. And so here's how he responds. Is this the way you want to
So again, just adding on to that point, that it was a broader philosophical point and just pointing to the absurdity of the blanket proposition. And if you don't apply that, or if you apply that in a way where it's like you're going after people for victimless activity, that's a problem. And there's also a benefit to the other side where it's like, yes, if we're trying to look for opportunities to preserve liberty, the J6ers who are not, violently attacking another individual, that kind of thing, violating the body of property of somebody else, shouldn't have just been arrested and put into, isolation chambers by default. Yeah, that's the point.
Yeah, exactly. And have the feds raid their homes and everything.
Exactly. So here's Dave on his retweet of you.
Yeah, I think, so here's what Dave responds, and I'll just read it verbatim, and then I want to reread it as if I was talking about gun owners.
Mm-hmm.
So, okay, here's what he says. He quote posts me, he says, I appreciate you answering the question. I think we know why Jack wouldn't, which is just loaded, more manipulation. And he goes, so just to be clear, and then he proceeds to say what I never just said, as we just showed you. Never said these words. So he goes, you believe that a 55-year-old crackhead has a right to enter a public elementary school, and it would be immoral to force him to leave, a violation of his rights. You're willing to put other people's young children in danger because you believe that is consistent with your ideology. Okay, I mean this as respectfully as it can be said. I view as being as evil as a communist or a Nazi, maybe worse, since you wrap this evil in the language of liberty. I understand why you guys wouldn't want to defend this in a debate. And I just got to point out that that last paragraph there, that's literally what I think of Dave. He wraps himself in the language of liberty. And he is the one that literally doesn't want to debate you. He's
the one who literally, after I answered the question, he's like, okay, I'll consider debating you.
Yeah.
Okay, I answer it.
Exactly.
Oh, no, you got to answer this other question first. Okay.
No.
You move the goalpost, change the topic because you realize you thought I would say something that you could just repost and make me look bad. But if you reposted what I had just posted, it would actually make you look really bad. And that's why you didn't like that.
Right.
Because it would make you look like a sophist. And that's not what you want with your following. So you got to go ahead and requote something else. And then that way you can mischaracterize it and put different words.
Exactly. I think he was projecting there. And now I want to reread
projection.
it as if we were talking about gun owners.
Right. Let's do that.
Before I said, no, I don't think gun owners should unilaterally be restricted from entering public schools. This generalization of gun owners, just like I said, drug addicts. Now Dave would respond in his sophistic status way that, so just to be clear, you believe that a 55-year-old gun owner has a right to enter a public elementary school and it would be immoral to force him to leave, a violation of his rights. Yeah, that's correct. It's if he did nothing else but be 55 years old and a gun owner, yeah, that's correct. On government public property that he's forced to fund, maybe he's picking up his child, he shouldn't be just suddenly forced out of nowhere and searched and have his weapon seized. And that's what I'm saying.
Right. And on the other, and to clarify too, on the other flip side of this, it's like, oh, it's just any stranger. You mean not just a parent? We're not, those are people are already banned. We're talking about the philosophical, ethical sense that, yes, if it was public property, this or that, are you going to sit there and say, well, you know what, we should look for more ways for government to criminalize people over that? There's already rules about strangers who are not, parents of kids or some vendor that coming. Like, we're not sitting here trying to go and change those things. We're pointing to the absurdities of public property. We're pointing to the absurdities of trying to get more drug war violence, more gun war violence, and more government rules. These rules already exist. They're already gun-free school zones. They're already drug-free school zones. And gosh, we already know, how many drugs are brought in and how teachers can treat kids and this or that. So exactly. It's never been the focus. The focus of our position is not this idea of, wow, as libertarians, our focus is, we should really push people to get crackheads in public schools. That's just what we got to do. No, we're here focused on privatization. We're here focused on the tragedy exists. How do we end the tragedy?
And
how do we save kids?
Add more? How do we stop emboldening the state to create more victimless crime laws as an excuse to violate people's rights? We're trying to end violations of property rights, not advocate for more. That's the whole point. But of course, a disingenuous person wouldn't care about that.
Well, and I want to bring something else in here too, because it's the flip side of the gun situation, right? Because I love using the gun situation rhetoric, because people would be like, really the Karen would be like, oh my gosh, there's gonna be guns in school, their kids gonna be shot and this or that. Like, you have a gun-free school zone, someone's gonna come and be a mass shooter. And it's like the whole point of having guns is to defend against people who would cause harm to kids, right? It's not, oh, you have to allow a crackhead to walk in and molest your kids. It's literally, whoa, is there some crackhead coming in and he's, not supposed to be there in terms of he has no connection to anybody and he's a threat? You should be able to defend against someone who's threatening you, your body or property. It doesn't matter whether it's public or private, right? The question is simply, are you going to encourage this random blanket rule? Oh yes, no matter what, we're gonna make a status crime. You're addicted. Is this really helping people think about libertarian ideas and moving the ball forward? Or is it getting them to lust after being like, ooh yes, I can get the reins of state power in my hands and I could be a true child protector because I made public schools a little safer. It has nothing to do with libertarian ideology. Libertarian ideology is about getting rid of the compulsion. It's about encouraging parents to get their kids out now so they can save their kids from the brainwashing and the abuse and the bullying and everything else that comes with it, where they come out broken and deteriorated in their thinking abilities and with no motivation in life and thinking the government is the solution to every problem in their life. That is the root problem. Not, oh my gosh, there's an epidemic in crackheads in kindergartens today. That he makes up these scenarios so he can sit there and feel like he's protecting kids and he's like some moral god or something, like as if this is slavery in the 1600s.
That's what
like it's an epidemic now. It's so sophistic. It's so frustrating.
Yeah, he should debate his friend Michael Malice on schools, because Michael would agree that public schools is, he said it before, for most people in America, it's the only time they actually face actual abuse. Is indirect abuse and control is in the public school
physical
system.
Violence.
So,
and 1 in 10 face sexual harassment as well. That was a 2005 study thing. I posted that with the Honest Teacher because it's public schools are rife with dysfunctional authoritarian people. It's not really confusing. It's not really hard to imagine because who's attracted to these positions of power and these secure government checks and authority and you should respect me because I'm a government agent. yeah, what would you be, parent, without me, the teacher, right? I've seen the mentality because I've worked in it. It's sick. It's why you need to get your kids out of school.
Because I was in public school, K through 12,
Yeah.
so I saw it myself. The control freaks.
Yeah. So this is important here too. I want to show this because Dave, when he reposted you, it wasn't the end of it. You actually commented right away and said something to push back against his characterization.
Yeah. I said, wow, dude, you sound just like the communist socialist SJWs that strawman my arguments and then proceed to call me more names like evil or Nazi without actually even giving me a counter argument to the points I mentioned. Insane. And so there it is, just me responding and just pointing out that he completely strawmans my argument and labels me, calls me names, and really shows that he is not an intellectually honest and genuine person. He is his own cult of personality, and he ran as LP president and later just left going, haha.
Well, he said that he would. He didn't run.
Well, yeah. Right. He said that
he said that he would.
Got paid by LP Mises Caucus to go around and go on these tours under this idea that he would run.
For events and promotions.
And
yeah. Just want to be extra accurate with our language on that.
Right.
Yeah. So.
Oh, thanks.
Yeah.
And then he doesn't when he sees that he can just go and finally have that comedian career he'd been wanting and finally is getting in his 4th decade of life, in his 40s. So that's just what I saw, an opportunist. Somebody who's really not principled, somebody who's completely dishonest, and is a manipulative control freak. So,
and
on top of that,
so this is of course had its own run there. Yes. So the problems don't end here. Of course, calling my wife, saying that she's as evil as commies and Nazis, that kind of thing. Obviously, even without it being said, if you said someone's as bad as those people. You're kind of putting someone on a really low pedestal. Like those are kind of the people that you think you're going to have to fight against potentially because they're really evil. Like, the archetypes of evil, Nazis. Especially from a libertarian perspective. Right. I mean, even the mainstream Nazis, of course, are seen as, really evil. Yep. Existential evil, in fact. So he doesn't simply do this. He doubles down and makes it even worse than what he had posted.
Yeah.
And this is something that came out in a documentary. We'll talk about that at the end. But the context here is that it was on an interview here on Libertarian Christian Institute with Jacob Winograd and Matthew Bellis. And on that interview, he specifically, calls her out, you could say, but we're going to show how he uses language to try, hide from it. And he says things that other people did not believe when we told them. We said, look, he's saying these things. Go watch the video. Go watch it for yourself. Don't just listen to us. Go watch the whole thing, start to finish, 2 hours, please. We're not making this up. We're not minimizing or misreading. Go look at his own words. And we're going to do that right now. We're going to pull up what he says in response to what happened on Twitter, because when you hear it and when we go over this, it's going to really give you a contextualization as to his intents, right? It's going to be that next level understanding of, okay, this is not about philosophical debate. This is not, what's the best way to message, with libertarianism. You're going to see what he's attempting to do.
And before you do that, I just want to preface it with, this is now what we just showed you was the context for what Dave is about to respond to, and revealed to us that him calling me a commie or a Nazi was not actually what he would have really wanted to tell me in that moment. In that moment, he would have really wanted to tell me that my views there of no, in general, we shouldn't have this blanket rule for government public schools that drug addicts shouldn't be allowed to enter. No, that shouldn't be a blanket rule. He then is saying that he would have rather advocated for me to be murdered and killed for having those views. But instead, he was scared and too much of a coward, so instead he just called me as bad as a Nazi or a commie. So just want to give that context that, yes, he is calling and saying that it would be justified to murder me for my views there, that we just showed you the back and forth for.
All right, let's take a look.
So, not everyone is in that situation. And as a libertarian, you know that you are forced to pay property taxes for the public schools. You're also robbed to pay income taxes and lots of other taxes as well. And then there's also these truancy laws in many parts of the country where you're actually like forced to send your kid to the school if you can't afford anything else. And so to say that that person whose kids are forced into this situation, I'm going to put their kids in danger because that, like, I'm sorry, I don't take it back. To me, that's as bad. And look, to be clear, when I said when I said to that faux lady that you're as bad as,
and I just want to pause there.
Faux lady.
I just want to emphasize here
We've met
because
for over 5 years. You know my name.
Right. Not only, of course, he knows what she goes by, but I just wanted to pause on that moment because, just to be clear, he's not talking about some random woman at a Vietnamese restaurant. Okay. Let's just make sure that's like not missing here when he says that faux lady. He's not talking about some random woman at a Vietnamese restaurant they got served at. Okay. So let's just be clear that he's using that little bit of a wordplay there. All right.
A commie or a Nazi, and maybe worse because you're wrapping it in libertarian language. I don't mean to say she's as bad as a Nazi who in Nazi Germany who was putting a kid in a gas chamber, or a commie who was starving a Ukrainian to death. I'm saying you're as bad as someone in America today who's a Nazi or a commie. Like that, just to be clear.
What you're advocating
for is as evil. You're and look, just this is the thing when you have kids and you're not in the situation that.
Now, I just got to pause real quick because, again, as you go, there's so much sophistry loaded in this, it really kind of hurts. He tries to make a distinction without a difference in terms of what he's doing. Right. Oh, you're not as bad as the 1940s Nazis. You're just as bad as the Nazis in the U.S. and the commies.
Right,
okay. Do you like these people or something? Are these people like you're friends with, and they're like, oh, they're fine. It's they're just nice Nazis.
It's not a true distinction.
What does that have to do with?
It's just a distraction to make himself not sound as bad.
He wants to make himself sound like he's being reasonable. And guys, I'm really reasonable when I make this demonization. I'm not saying she's a Nazi from the 40s. Come on.
I'm just saying she's a Nazi now.
I just think she's a Nazi now of Nazis, right? Who want to get power again, and commies who want to get power and mass murder people. Okay. Anyway.
It's nonsense.
And we're about to go into the next part here where he's going to, bring up kids as a shield thing. He always does this.
Mm-hmm.
They're in is that when you have kids, you go like, you start to understand what it is. And you understand that other kids are as precious as yours. Like I understand that other kids are as precious as mine. I care about mine more, but I also understand that like your kids are as precious as mine are. And it's just this thing where you're like, oh, I know that seems shocking to some of you that I would say you're as bad as a commie or a Nazi or something. But like, if I was in that situation and I couldn't afford to do anything else, and I was making 30 grand a year and I needed my wife to work because I was only making that, luckily I'm not in that situation. But if I was, and I had to send my kids to public school, and you were advocating that crackheads be allowed to sit down next to them in the second grade.
Yeah, just pause there, because did you hear he had that because he's about to say fa?
Yeah.
So again, because it's one stream of consciousness, he's saying that she believes these things. He's associating with her and saying, "Oh, you don't care about kids, and I care about kids. I think other kids." It's like, dog. Like, what are these like sophistic Karen-esque, mythical labels, like as if, oh, you don't care about other people's kids. Like, we literally have nieces and nephews. I literally worked with kids through my whole career as a juvenile defense lawyer, as a teacher, as a tutoring company owner. Like, the idea of like, oh, you can't possibly understand how it's important to protect kids. He does this in a way to make it seem like, oh, these people don't care about the children. They think of the children. It's such a sophisticated emotional manipulation. I just want people to see that as he's doing it live.
Yeah, it's more non-arguments and more just assertions to misdirect and confuse people as to what I actually said, and what I actually believe.
Which he has not yet quoted once.
He didn't read it. He didn't say, hey,
here's what she actually said.
Context like we just did.
Yeah.
And be like, hey, screenshot, this is what I said. This is Jack. He made this point. I didn't want to respond. I want to bring up drug addicts. I mentioned his wife, so then his wife jumps in. He didn't do that.
Nope.
Why would he
But we do that?
Because it would show that he is a lying sophist.
Like, if you were putting my kids in that situation, listen, let me tell you something. Calling you a commie or a Nazi is the nicest thing I could say. What I actually would say, I feel uncomfortable saying on a podcast, on air.
Don't let the Christian titles fool you, Dave. Go ahead. Go on.
Well, look,
And even that there, honestly, I was very disappointed.
Just
Don't let the
feels so
Christian
sick.
title fool you.
Are you just Christian?
So what's the
name
point of your
only?
Christian title then
Exactly.
at Christian Institute there, Libertarian
Yeah,
Christian?
literally.
Does it not matter? Okay. But yeah.
There's many.
Yeah.
many
But
Christian
Dave there
people.
saying, "Oh, that's the nicest thing I can see," and what I'd really want to say, he's telling you
Yeah.
this deep hatred
Right.
and this imputation that this is your view.
Yeah.
He's associating the murderous intent to her and saying this is what she represents.
Yep.
I'll just say this, and I mean this. There are some things worth killing people over, and there are some things worth dying over. There are some things worth dying in order to have a chance to kill someone over. And for me, that's it.
Okay, so did you just hear him? He says specifically, because he uses the vague, weaselly language to try to make it seem like, but he's here. It's like, I really want to say something, but I can't.
Weaselly he was,
Oh my gosh. There's some people worth killing over.
Calculated.
Yeah. Every word's so calculated.
Like,
yeah.
That sounds bad. Let me
yeah.
reframe it.
And yeah, there's some people, you might have to die to kill. And there's some, and this is it, right? And you might be saying, this is what people are saying to us. Well, he was just saying if people threatens his kids, but that's what he's imputing. He's literally saying her ideology, her worldview.
Y'all fell for it,
and y'all fell for it.
Just like I did.
Her whole ambiance, her whole worldview is a existential threat to her kids. This person here is a threat to Dave Smith's kids who go to private school, by the way. It's
the
that
person who advocates for universal respect of life, liberty, and property rights.
So
I'm the one. I'm actually the one trying to protect kids.
Right.
Instead of being like, we should keep paying our property taxes and sending our kids to these brainwashing institutions.
Sorry, Joe, you only make $30K a year, unlike me, Dave here is making $150K, I guess.
But instead of using my platform to advocate for Joe to not be threatened with jail for not sending his kids to public school, threatened to jail for not paying his property taxes, no, I'm not going to use my platform to do that. Instead, I'm going to go after the philosopher who's making a genuine case for why we shouldn't make more victimless crime laws and empower the government to violate our rights further.
Right. Or even using the opportunity to educate people who might think, maybe I can't afford it, but maybe they can. And you just got to connect them with the right resources. Encouraging people to say, maybe there's a way. Even that would be a world of difference better in messaging, but that's not what he wants. Why? Because he doesn't want to alienate his blue-collar worker listeners who listen to his stuff while they're doing other things, because he talks 2 to 3 hours a day, 4 to 5 days a week. He doesn't want to alienate them, be like, oh my, I might say something that could offend them by saying, maybe you should take your kids out of public school.
And
then you're going to feel guilty about that because you're sending your kids in a state brainwashing center, but I don't want you to feel guilty about that. No, don't cancel your subscriptions. Yeah. That is the character we are dealing with.
Keep letting my kids go to private school.
Right. My kids are going to private school.
I'm not going to advocate for the opposite.
Right. And again, you can be empathetic.
I'm going to go after someone named the philosopher advocating for liberty for all and say that she's as evil as a Nazi, but actually mean to say that you think that I am worthy of being murdered for my view there. That no, unilaterally, this generalization of drug addicts shouldn't be restricted from entering public schools. No, we shouldn't do what you see in New York City public schools, for example, where there's searches and seizures, where there's metal detectors, where kids sometimes aren't allowed to even have a backpack and have privacy. They constantly have their stuff searched and they have to have clear backpacks, or they have dogs sniff them, and then if the dog smells something, that's all their stuff coming out.
Take them to the SRO room and they search them. Yeah.
Right. So actually being molested there. Actually molested.
Right. It's something else.
No. Instead, you want to advocate to your however many hundreds of thousands of followers that I should be worthy of being murdered. That is absolutely disgusting, and it's, to me, no different than the people who cheered for the murder of Charlie Kirk. The people who say that, wow, Charlie Kirk was going around and he was having these debates on abortion, on what is a woman, what is a man. And you know what? Because he was having those debates, because he has views that I don't like, I think it's fine that fascist caught a bullet. That, to me, is that is what Dave Smith is doing. I see him as no different. And in fact, I see him as worse because he labels himself a libertarian. So I hope that you people out there watching can learn to see the truth, and that you shouldn't be following someone who really does not have your best interests at heart, and they're sophistic. They're really not into truth. They're more into falsehood and cults of personality, and who looks mightier or looks right, who looks more attractive or whatever. They don't actually care about the ideas. They don't care about actual definitions of words and making actual arguments. So that's what I'm saying to you. Hope you can see that he is not to be trusted.
Yeah, and fundamentally what he does is he chases the current thing, because that his whole thing with if you can call it comedy,
like
comedy
other
and
NPCs.
podcasting has to be chasing whatever it is that gets him the most subscribers, that gets him the most clicks, because without those things, that, you know, that is his revenue. It's not like he has a main job and he did something other than hold a mic. He literally does this thing full time, and so he has to go and appeal to the center of the bell curve, because for him to not do so is not financially sustainable. If he just stays principled, it can alienate people at times. It could be controversial, right? Because if you say taxation is theft and the state is violence, that's gonna alienate lots of people in the mainstream. But if you say things that sound good to, like, you know, the little bit of middle conservative, you know, America, and you give them some bones and you start, you know, compromising your language, say, no, I care about your concerns, you can pick up some following.
It's the will of the people.
Right?
It's okay to do this.
It's the sentiment without the substance. It's like any normal Republican who says, yeah, I like liberty and free markets. And you're like, yes, I like your language, but is that really what you advocate for? When push comes to stuff, you say, well, what policies are you advocating for? Oh, we want tariffs. I'm like, well, that's not exactly free market. That's where we're at with this. And what I want to also close with here is that what tuned us into this, because we didn't know that he said this in the show.
Yeah, I had no idea.
We were shocked.
I don't watch Libertarian Christian Institute, and I especially wouldn't, especially after this and finding this out. But I also didn't care about Dave. I knew after that exchange in February 2024 that he really isn't to be trusted, and he really doesn't care about the truth. So I stopped following him. So I didn't even know until Liquid Zulu made this nice video.
Right. So we want to encourage people to watch, because we were watching this documentary, and when we saw the documentary, we saw that clip. We're like, whoa, wait, what? That fall lady? And then we're like, what? We looked.
Oh, he's talking about me.
Yeah, we're like, he's talking about her. Like, what? And so it's on. You can look it up. It's called Anatomy of the Libertarian. It's a long video. Yes, it's going to be.
And what's the channel?
It's going to be on Liquid Zulu here. But looking up Anatomy of the Libertarian will take you right to it. It's the easiest way to find it. We want you to watch this video when you have time, or break it up, whatever. It's going to take time. It's a 3.5-hour video, and yes, it's a long documentary. But let's face the facts. If you listen to podcasters and you're listening to 2-hour shows, 3-hour shows, Joe Rogan, this or this, and you're doing this 3 times, 4 times, 5 times a week, just killing time, driving to work, this or that, you got some time. You can find some time, whether you're working or driving or this or that. Please do listen to this show, this documentary. We want you to watch it, because it is just a wonderful foray into what he has said over the years, and comparing those statements, because he even contradicts himself many of the time, you know, and that's why a lot of people like him in many ways, because he would say good things. He would say things where, like, yeah, we agree with that. And then he would go on to contradict himself. He would go on to say things that are opposite, principally. And over time, more and more people just gave him leeway and kind of was like, whatever, excusing it, because his big, you know, show after show after show, when people were like, oh, wow, he's getting so big, they just stopped caring about the substance. We're like, well, at least he's talking to a bigger audience about liberty. It's like, yeah, except when push comes to shove, the advocacies that he makes causes people to actually totally not hold to any libertarian principles.
Exactly.
It becomes no different than any rhetoric of any normal Republican right now. It's like, you know what I mean? And again,
it becomes another status philosophy instead of enlightening people.
Right. The enlightenment is not there. Right.
What violations actually happen today. So this is a good documentary covering I'm just one example of this. But, you know, Liquid Zulu goes through all the different sophistic things that Dave has said over the years and people he's attacked. I'm but one, you know, little piece in this 3-hour thing. So we definitely recommend you check that out. And hopefully that helps you see.
Yeah, and what we too want to close here with is that
arise and to be more aware in the future, you know, and not just fall victim just because someone has however many likes. You know, you don't think Joe Biden is right just because hundreds of thousands of people vote for him, do you? So don't make that same authoritarian fallacy when it comes. Authority fallacy, appeal to authority, with Dave or anyone. Just because they have a big following, they can be wrong. They can be unprincipled, and they can also have bad intentions and be an evil person. So.
Yeah, it's about thinking skills. It's about integrity. It's about honesty. It's about being forthright with your intentions. It's about having real debate over the ideas without saying, oh, you're just, more evil than a Nazi or a communist or that. You know what I mean? We can sit here and go through the ideas like we just did. We can talk about the arguments. We can talk about the sophistry, but we don't call here and be like, oh, you're maybe worthy of being killed or something like that. This is not a direction that we think is healthy or good. And I think Charlie Kirk's situation is a great example of what happens when you go down that path. Yeah. Like the woke left did. If you go down that path and, oh my gosh, they're an existential threat, they're a fascist, they're not this, that. If you keep going there and it's not the real thing, like for real, you create on those fringes, on those edges, the mentally ill people or the people who are just total, psychophant, true believer people. Right. You create an urge in them to go and do pretty evil things. And we are trying to reel that back and focus back on what we care about, which is philosophy, truth over falsehood, bringing in context. Hey, here's what our specific arguments are. Here's what we actually are saying. Thinking about compared to what's, economics, trade-offs, opportunity costs, messaging. Those things all matter. Yep. Those things all matter to whether you can sustainably change and affect culture change for people. And we see what he has done as something that has not just disrupted that change, but has turned it toward a very anti-libertarian framework of thinking through things. He can say some libertarian things in between, but his framework about how he approaches the messaging and how he thinks through the issues is indistinguishable from any normie statist who thinks of collectivization with will of the people. Exactly. Or, what does the majority think? Or, oh, think of the children. Yeah. It's like, dude, you've stopped thinking about the actors and the actions and the consequences of those things and the state power and the alternatives, the better things that you could advocate for and encourage people to check out and to really think through and to challenge them on.
Now you're just a collectivist, just like the commies and Nazis you said that I was. Yeah. You yourself are that, in fact. It's not me.
Just a collectivism.
I focus on specifics. And when I debate commies and Nazis, or not Nazis.
Not too often, man.
I actually know they do exist.
Yeah, we've had a couple especially here and there, like, okay, but...
The war against Israel, but...
yeah.
Even with communists, they say, like, oh, we should have more taxation. We should tax the rich. These people, for example, that I think Dave Smith is just as bad as communists and socialists. I don't wish death upon them. I only wish death on people when they are initiating and calling for murder, when they are actually making a threat of murder. That's different. That's saying, okay, I advocate for violent defense of myself, of life, liberty, and property. That's what I'm saying. I don't just unilaterally say, oh, we should just round up everyone who says that they want to tax the rich and just push them out of helicopters. No, that's evil. To have and be incorrect about an idea is not an initiation of violence against somebody else. It's not violating someone else's property rights. You have the right to be wrong. You have the right to be insane. But what you don't have the right is the right to murder somebody, to steal from somebody. And that's ultimately what we always point to. And that's why we focus on specific actors and actions, because it is too easy, and this is what the state does, the corporate press, politicians. They generalize groups of people so that it's easier for someone who doesn't think critically to be like, yeah, all gun owners are bad, and if you just want a gun, you must just want to shoot up everybody and bring crackheads with guns to schools. That must be you.
Oh, man.
That's literally why I'm the philosopher, and we advocate for liberty.
Yeah.
Is to dispel, collectivist mindsets like that truly plague humanity, and plague humanity from evolving to be this beautiful, peaceful, prosperous society that it can be, and that it is. For many people around the world, they have this peaceful life within their own family and friends. They don't coerce each other. They would protect their families with their lives. They're gun owners. They would big igloo dance for each other. That already exists. the thing that we're saying is the institutions of violence, the monopolies on violence around the world, governments, statism, that is the thing that's lingering. Most people already get slavery is wrong, murder is wrong, theft is wrong. And thank God. I'm glad we're not born, during the time when humans were like, nah, murder is okay, slavery's fine. Like, I'm glad I don't have to make that case, and that's been done. Now we're at the stage of, cool, we all get that murder is wrong. Let's not say it's justified just because someone says that I am the United States of America federal government. Right, for example, or the CCP. It's not suddenly, okay, now murder is justified. No, it's always wrong, and that's the point. It's about being consistent and actually being the most consistent mofo. That's the point. That's what libertarians should be.
Don't be part of the problem.
Exactly.
That's basically it. Well, we appreciate y'all, and hopefully this was edifying, and we'll be back doing more. We've had a lot to deal with lately in terms of just, life circumstances with loved ones dying and passing and have to deal with those things, and, sucks and happens. But we are back, baby. So we're so back.
Yeah. Thanks, everyone, for being here for us. I want to say to those who got it right away and they heard what he said on the Libertarian Christian Institute's show and saw that, okay, yeah, he literally is saying that it would be justified to murder Pho for her views. And I appreciate you people that actually went back and read the threads that he was talking about and saw for yourself that he completely mischaracterized what I said, strawmanned, and asserted things that I didn't actually even believe. And so I appreciate you guys for, giving us the benefit of the doubt and then using your own critical thinking skills to think for yourself and see the evidence for yourself and the actual full context. So really appreciate you guys, and together we will make liberty win.
We will make liberty win, that's for sure.